had to realize that I was worth loving, loving, loving. I had to realize that I was worth loving, loving, loving.
Hello, and welcome back to the Worth Loving Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. And I know I always say this, but I truly mean it. Thank you for taking time out of your day to sit with me, reflect with me, and grow with me. This space is for you. It's for healing. It's for your clarity and your emotional safety. So today we're doing something that I absolutely love doing. I know it's something we just started a few weeks ago, but it's one of my favorite things to do. And that is a question and answer episode. I have a lot of amazing questions that we are going to answer today, and I am so excited to get to it because of the fact that a lot of times when we're doing a podcast, I'm giving tons of information, but I don't have time to answer questions. But now we actually do have time to answer questions, and I just love the fact that this is what we're starting to do. But before we jump in, I want to set the tone. This is a trauma-informed space. That means we're not judging your past choices, your patterns, or the way that you try to feel love, okay? We are here to understand them. We're here to bring compassion to the parts of you that just learn to survive in ways that make sense at the time. And I just want you to know, no judgment. We're just getting the information so that you can have that relationship and the love that you desire. So as you listen today, take whatever resonates, leave what doesn't. Let your body guide you and notice what feels true, what feels tender, and what feels like an invitation to grow. Okay, so let's get to the first question. But before we do, let's do a quick recap of the main episode. Okay, so yesterday we talked about how emotional intimacy is built through safety, trust, vulnerability, and consistent emotional responsiveness. We talked about how it's slow, steady, how it's a connection that grows over time, and that it's what allows us to feel known in relationships and not just wanted. We talked about how physical intimacy, on the other hand, can absolutely enhance a relationship, but how it can also create emotional confusion when it happens before emotional intimacy is established. We talked about how physical closeness releases oxytocin, which can make you feel bonded, even when a relationship isn't emotionally safe or emotionally deep, which can cause emotional confusion. We also talked about how trauma histories can shape the way we connect, and how for some people, emotional safety feels scary, right? Emotional intimacy, feels scary or unfamiliar because it's not what we're used to. And that physical intimacy can become an easier way to get that closeness. So it can be like a shortcut to closeness. But unfortunately, shortcuts don't build relationships. So understanding the difference can help us make choices that honor our emotional needs instead of just our emotional impulses. And that's exactly why the questions this week are so important. So let's look at question number 1. Okay, question number 1. How do I know if what I'm feeling is emotional intimacy or just physical chemistry? That is an amazing question because, as we said earlier, it can be difficult to know, right? So I think it's one that a lot of people struggle with because emotional intimacy and physical chemistry can feel similar in the moment, right? Especially when your nervous system is activated, but they're not the same. So here's the difference. Physical chemistry is immediate, okay? Emotional intimacy is gradual. Physical chemistry shows up as excitement, attraction, butterflies, and that spark that makes you want to be close to someone. It's real, but it's not the whole story. Emotional intimacy, on the other hand, shows up in quiet moments, right? It's the comfort you feel when you're not trying to impress someone. It's the safety you feel when you share something vulnerable and they respond with care. It's the consistency you see over time. So just a simple way to tell the difference is this. Does the connection feel clear or confusing? Physical chemistry without emotional intimacy can lead to confusion or mixed signals, anxiety, overthinking, or feeling bonded way too quickly. Emotional intimacy, on the other hand, brings clarity. It brings calm and a sense of being grounded. And your body will also let you know the truth. Emotional intimacy feels like exhaling. Physical chemistry feels like adrenaline. Both matter, but only one builds long-term connection. So that is one way you can tell if it is physical chemistry or emotional intimacy. Remember, physical chemistry is quick, it's fast, full of adrenaline, where emotional intimacy is slower, it's clarity, it's calming, okay? All right, question number 2. Why does physical intimacy make me feel connected even when the relationship isn't healthy? Wow, this is such an amazing question because this is such a human experience, and there's nothing wrong with you for feeling this way. Physical intimacy releases oxytocin, and that's the bonding hormone. So it's the same hormone that's released during childbirth and breastfeeding. It's designed to create attachment. So when you're physically intimate with someone, your brain interprets that closeness as emotional connection, even if the relationship itself isn't emotionally safe or emotionally deep. And I think this is one of the reasons why people talk about how good makeup sex is, right? So it's like you had an argument, you may not be getting along, but that sexual connection feels amazing. And this is why it can give you that emotional connection, even if the relationship is not good or where it needs to be. For people with trauma histories, this can even be stronger because emotional intimacy was inconsistent or unsafe growing up. So if this is the case, your nervous system could latch onto physical closeness as the primary way to feel connected because it's familiar, it's soothing, it's immediate, right? But here's the key. Physical intimacy can mimic emotional intimacy, but it cannot replace it. That is why it is possible to feel deeply connected to someone who isn't good for you. Your body bonded even when your heart wasn't safe. So this is not a failure on your part. It's strictly biology. It's the Bible. And once you understand that, you can make choices that support your emotional well-being instead of just your emotional impulses. Okay, looking for question number 3. Okay, what if I want to slow down physical intimacy, but I'm scared the person will lose interest? That can definitely happen, right? Because that is a part of life, and that is a common fear, especially for people who have been taught directly or indirectly that physical intimacy is the main thing they have to offer. But here's the truth. Anyone who loses interest because you want to slow down physical intimacy was never interested in emotional intimacy to begin with. Slowing down isn't about withholding, it's about pacing. It's about giving yourself space to build emotional safety before adding physical closeness. And I think this is important when I say before adding physical closeness, because a lot of times when we have these discussions, have these conversations, people think that, oh, so you shouldn't have sex. Oh, you should withhold sex. We're not saying any of those things. I'm just saying that if you want to slow down to get that emotional intimacy first, that is okay. And throughout the whole podcast, we realized that emotional intimacy creates healthier, stronger relationships, right? So that's what you're going for. That's what you're looking for. It might be a good idea to slow down the physical intimacy at first so that you can build that emotional intimacy, have that safety. Know that this is a safe space for you before you jump into the physical closeness or physical intimacy. If someone respects you, they'll respect your pace, they'll respect your boundaries, and they'll respect the fact that you want to wait until you have that emotional connection. They will lean in emotionally. They'll stay consistent. They'll show curiosity about who you are and not just what you can offer them physically. So if someone pulls away when you slow down, that's clarity. That's not loss. It's information. It's a sign that they weren't looking for the kind of connection you deserve, or maybe even have the type of relationship that you want or that you're looking for. Your boundaries don't push people away. They actually filter out the wrong people. So this could just be a way to know whether this person might make a good partner for you or not if they decide to pull away and lose interest because you won't have that physical intimacy before you establish the emotional intimacy. So yeah, that's a really good question. All right, we're going to question number 4. Okay, this is really good. Why do I shut down emotionally when someone tries to get close to me? So emotional shutdown is a protective response. It's your nervous system saying, this feels too vulnerable, too fast, or too familiar to pass hurt. So if you grew up in environments where emotional needs were ignored, dismissed, or punished, emotional closeness may feel unsafe. And your body learned that vulnerability creates danger. So when someone gets close, your system goes into shutdown to protect you. Now, this does not mean you're broken. It means you have adapted. It means you survived. The key is learning to recognize the shutdown without judging it. Ask yourself, what part of me feels threatened? What story is my body telling me? What do I need to feel safe right now? Emotional intimacy requires safety, and safety requires pacing. You don't have to open up all at once. You can take small steps. You can build trust slowly. You can let your nervous system adjust at a pace that feels manageable. Healing isn't about forcing yourself to be vulnerable, it's about creating conditions where vulnerability feels possible. All right, so we are moving on to question number 5. And question number 5 is, how do I build emotional intimacy when I've never seen it modeled? That is such a powerful question, and I want you to hear this clearly. You can learn emotional intimacy even if you've never experienced it. Emotional intimacy is a skill set, not a personality trait, and skills can be learned. Start with curiosity, ask deeper questions, share small pieces of yourself, and notice how people respond. Emotional intimacy grows through small, consistent moments of honesty. You can also practice emotional intimacy with yourself. Journaling, therapy, self reflection, and naming your feelings all help you build internal emotional safety. The more emotionally connected you are to yourself, the easier it is to build emotional intimacy with others. And remember, emotional intimacy is mutual. You don't have to carry the whole load alone. So look for people who will meet you halfway. All right, question number 6. Why do I attract people who want physical intimacy but not emotional intimacy? Wow, that is an amazing question because so many times it seems like we attract the thing that we're really not looking for, but we attract the things that we don't attract the things that we actually want, right? So here's the thing. This could be a pattern many people experience, and often just comes down to boundaries, self-worth, and familiarity, and being familiar, right, with what you're dealing with. A lot of the times, the physical intimacy can feel familiar, so maybe that is why it is possible to attract that. Because sometimes, to be honest, we actually attract what feels familiar, not what feels healthy. So if emotional intimacy is inconsistent or safe or something in your past that you never experienced, you may unconsciously gravitate toward people who offer physical closeness but avoid emotional depth because it feels familiar. Maybe you have a hard time connecting emotionally. So this would feel perfect because you can get that closeness really quickly without having to get to know anyone or be vulnerable with that emotional depth. And it can feel familiar even though it's not fulfilling. Another factor is boundaries. If you're not clear about your emotional needs, people who avoid emotional intimacy may see this as an opening. But here's the empowering part. You don't attract what you deserve. You attract what you tolerate. So this is good because it lets you know that you deserve more, that you don't deserve what you've been attracting, and that we attract what we tolerate. So it's great because if we attract what we tolerate, once we stop tolerating certain things, then that means we will stop attracting certain types of people. When you start prioritizing emotional intimacy, slowing down physical intimacy, and communicating your needs clearly, the pattern does shift. People who only want physical closeness, they're going to leave. They're going to go away, right? But people who want that emotional connection, they're going to lean in and they're going to get closer. So you're not doomed to repeat the same patterns. You're learning, you're growing, and you are allowed to choose differently. And that's the thing about life that I love so much. As long as we are alive and breathing, we are not doomed to the same patterns, whether it's in love, whether it's in finances, whether it is our choices, the things we choose to do, the mistakes we made. We don't have to keep doing those same things. We can change, we can grow. And it's all about learning and knowing what to do. I remember years ago people say you do better once you know better, right? And I think it's true with every aspect of our lives. Once we know better, once we know how to handle money, we can do better, right? Once we know what type of relationships we're looking for and how to get the relationships that we actually want that are healthy and where we have that emotional connection, then we'll be able to do it. So this is important to know that we can have what we want as long as we know how to get it and know what we need to do. Question number 7. How do I know if someone is emotionally safe? Okay, so here's one of the ways you can know. Emotional safety shows up in consistency, not intensity. So someone who is emotionally safe will listen without dismissing you. They'll respect your boundaries, apologize when needed, and they will communicate clearly. They'll show up the same way over time. So you can feel relaxed around them. You don't feel like you have to perform. You don't feel anxious, waiting for the next move. Emotional safety feels like exhaling, and I said this before, because we've all had those relationships where we felt nervous, on edge, emotionally drained, anxiety and everything, right? Those relationships typically were not the safe ones, right? But the ones that are safe, we can be ourselves. I know I've been in relationships where I felt like I couldn't be myself and I had to be someone else and I had to perform. But once you realize that emotional, healthy, and safe relationships, you can be yourself because being who you are is fine and you don't have to perform. So these are just some ways that you can know if someone is emotionally safe. Question number 8. What does emotional intimacy looks like early in dating? This is a good question. I love it so much. So in early dating, intimacy is subtle, right? It's not deep confessions or trauma bonding. It's curiosity. It's steady. It's communication. It's someone remembering what you said. So it's a mutual effort. It's pacing that feels comfortable. It's a slow build and not a full emotional flood. So in this type of relationship, you may not have that intensity. You may not have butterflies in your stomach. You may not have that feeling of passion, right? But you will feel like you can be yourself. You will be curious about the person. You will feel like it's okay to ask questions. That person will be curious about you. They'll ask you questions. They'll feel like it's okay to be themselves. And it'll just feel comfortable. And you'll feel comfortable with that person. So that is what emotional intimacy can look like in the early stages of dating. Question 9. Love it. Can a relationship survive if emotional intimacy is missing? Okay, so here we go. Relationships can survive without emotional intimacy, but they really thrive. So that's the key. They can survive, but they're not. It's very rare that they thrive, okay? Emotional intimacy is the foundation. Without it, relationships often feel unstable, confusing, or unbalanced, and those are not the relationships that we want. Physical intimacy can hold a relationship together for a while, but emotional intimacy is what keeps it strong long term. So, yes, in answer to your question, a relationship can survive without emotional intimacy, but it's very rare that that relationship will thrive without emotional intimacy. All right, well, guys, as we close up today's question and answer, I want to take a minute to check in with yourself and what ask you, like, what came up for you, what felt true, what felt tender, what felt like an invitation to grow. You do deserve to have emotional intimacy that feels steady, neutral, and safe. You deserve relationships that honor your boundaries, your pace, and your healing. And you deserve to feel known, not just wanted. And I know I say this a lot, but I say this because I want you to know this. The name of our podcast is the Worth Loving Podcast, right? So I want you to know that you are worth loving. You deserve to have the love that you want. You deserve to be in a love that feels healthy and safe. You deserve to have emotional intimacy and all the things that you want in a relationship. So this is why we keep reminding you, you deserve relationships that honor your boundaries and your pacing and your healing. And you deserve to feel known and not just wanted. All right, well, thank you so much for being here today and for listening to the answers to these thoughtful questions and for doing the work of understanding yourself more deeply. I will see you next week on the Worth Loving Podcast. But until then, have an amazing day and a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.